Hello, friends. How are you today? Well, today I have a spiritual teaching for you. It's about communicating with God in your own soul and how we can do that. The fact that we can do it. We can develop a relationship with the spiritual in our lives that meaningfully informs us and allows us to have guidance, communication, care, and protection. And today, rather than talking about techniques on how to do this, what I want to do is share with you this dream that I had that was so amazing, so deep and so amazing. So what I'll do is I'll describe the experience for you, and then I want to tell you what the messages were from my own soul to me. It was an angel dream, and it deeply affected me. So I burned my hand recently. I mentioned that in a couple of my videos. And in the process of having the burned hand, the pain was extraordinary. I mean, it was incredible. And it was almost like it was coming from my bones, okay? It was very deep. And what I realized is that, of course, there'd be some nerve pain with the burn, but it's almost like this incident opened the opportunity for me to feel pain in my body that I hadn't emotionally expressed. And so what I did was, having realized this, I breathed through it and I let myself feel the pain, but in a way that where I asked for my highest healing, my highest outcomes, and I imagined and I felt the presence of the light kind of moving through the pain and my arm and my bones and down to the cellular level and so on, releasing the emotional pain. And it's my view that in life, when we collect a painful experience or experiences, if we can't bring it to consciousness or it hasn't come to consciousness, sometimes what will happen is we will have a physical body expression where it seems like where we present with an illness, or we, like in my case, I had an accident that was a burn. But what we are doing in healing the physical is we're actually letting go of what I call emotional detritus and deep experiences that might be traumatic or that are unresolved. And it's really a good thing to do this. It burns off the dense energies in the field when it happens. We don't often like when it happens, but sometimes these things work towards our highest good, and I'd say they probably in some way do always do that when we go from the higher perspective to higher perspective. It's a question of how much time do these things take to unfold in terms of our awareness of where is the blessing. And so what happened was I realized that I had mourning to do, mourning, that there was the loss of someone that I experienced, and I needed to let that I hadn't fully addressed it. And there was a critical moment, as I've reviewed this over time, there's a critical moment in choice that I made. And I had realized this in the days before the burn. And, it was the kind of realization where, as human beings, we use our very clever minds and we try to come up with reasons for why things happen. But the fact is, we don't always know, why. And sometimes there's just not an explanation. And so I was in the not knowing of this, and I realized that there was a critical moment and choice that I made, and I thought, oh my goodness, what if this had had a negative effect? Now there was an invitation to pull my energy downward. Okay, so this is, then I am doing my spiritual work. I checked in and I got that this was not mine. This was essentially an offer from the energetic environment around me. Oh, go low with this, go into depression with this, go into, some kind of, drama interpersonally, inside, meaning inner, INNER, within the self. And when I checked in, it didn't feel right. And when I checked in, I got that this wasn't mine. So I simply restated to myself, and I use imagery a lot, but I reimagined my field without this in it, right? And I said I do not consent to that creation in my field, that emotional creation of deciding to focus on like the negative and then put an emotion with it. So we can do these things consciously. So that's a key thing, okay? And another key thing is that especially when we're using our mind to understand something, we may not have all the information. So what happened was I did not take the path of choosing what was outside myself to have an emotional drama within myself. Instead, I stayed peaceful and calm within and trusting within with the connection that I have with God, the Most High, the Creator of the universe, with my own soul, which I believe is the living flame of the Creator that each of us is. That we are as we are born, that is our life force, and that is essentially comes from heaven, if you will. That we don't fully understand or have access to from within our human physiology, but yet through prayer practice, through study, like study of the Bible, through meditation practices, through energy practices, managing your own energy field, we can come into and be into a relationship with ourselves first, and then with this divine part of ourselves. And so some people view it as outside the self, like when they pray to God and receive guidance and information. But to me, none of these things are separate. If I'm receiving guidance through prayer from God, or if I experience an angelic presence, in my view, these things are not separate from the core of who I am, because I am a child of God. I'm a child of the Creator. I have a living soul that is of divinity and of the Creator, right, of the Creator's realm, and that enlivens me and enhances and is my life force, and it enhances the more that deeply I come into connection with it. And so I trusted this inner connection, that I had this perception, and I just put it to God. And you can do this. You can develop a nonverbal way of communing with this energy, but I just put it to my inner spiritual guidance. Please help me understand this. And then I waited, right? And I did not go into emotions or further mental thoughts about it. And so I waited to be shown, because it said in Scripture, ask and you shall receive. And what I have found is every question of my heart is answered. That's another point here that I want to share, that when you engage with your own soul, your questions are answered. And sometimes it takes time, and sometimes it's quick. Well, in this case, I had the realization, and I'd say within 3 or 4 days, I had this amazing dream. So here's the dream. In the dream, I was at a beach. Some beaches are inlets. They're lagoons where they're not actually exposed to the whole ocean. There's land that stretches out, and maybe it's a peninsula or something. And so it's sort of a protected lagoon, okay? So I was at the beach, and I started walking with another person to the right side of the water. And I could see that there was sort of a circular, right, aspect to this lagoon. And so my friend and I were walking. Now, this was really interesting, my experience of myself from within the dream. I was extremely tall. I was very stately. And I had this flowy, divine, almost celestial energy, right? Essentially, from the perspective of having woken up and remembering the dream, it's like I was an angel in the dream. Okay, what we would perceive as that. Anyway, I was a person with this celestial energy, a being with this celestial energy, and another being with the exact same energy, very tall as well. And we were just walking in this rhythm and having this conversation together as we walked around the curve of the water. Well, we got to a certain spot, and I looked across, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. There was a sandbar, and then it had been turned into a walking path. And so the part of the lagoon was somehow in this circle, right, with the path at the bottom of the circle. And then we continued, and then the lagoon was another circle. And so we continued walking to the right around the second circle. So now this is obviously in an infinity shape, okay? Like an 8, the figure 8, right? And so what happens is we come around the bottom of the 8 somehow, and now we're on the other side of the 8. But as we're walking, what I realize is that, oh goodness, I noticed two things at almost the same time. I noticed there's suddenly an abrupt jug handle turn. It's no longer a smooth, sort of part of a circle on the path, but it's literally a right angle. And the path itself is very narrow, so there's really very little room for our bodies. There's plenty of room for our feet to walk on the path, which was so interesting because I didn't feel jostled by the other person or concerned at all. We were sort of so tall. We just were somehow able to walk along this path perfectly. Okay, so I noticed this, right, the path and the jug handle turn. But at the same time, the second thing I noticed was there was a young child that was really like human, because I guess that I was different than a human in the dream, and so the child came, and she was so like joyful. She was happy. She was, a pleasant child, full of exuberance and energy. And she's got this amazingly colored blue tricycle. So she was clearly young and in elementary school, maybe 7, 8, 9. I don't know. Anyway, she was very young in my dream, but she was just biking, and she was so excited to be near the presence of me and the other person, of these angels, right? And it was like she was trying to keep up and bike so hard, and she was having a grand old time with the thought of these angels. Now, as the angel self was walking and turns the corner, this is what happened. She thought to herself, I wonder if the child will be able to anticipate slowing down for the turn, and that she needs to make that turn. And and then the angel self thought, I'm going to, it's hard to explain because it's not even words, but I knew that from the position of that being, that I was going to pay attention to what happened. And sure enough, the little girl comes, and she's just biking, doesn't even see the turn. And now she's jettisoned, launched in the air and she's about to fall into the water. Well, the water was very deep and dark, right? It was almost black. I mean, it was black, brown. I don't know. It was just, you couldn't see anything. Now, obviously in water like that, you're not going to be able to see someone if they go down in. Well, as she launches, it was interesting. I had these feelings, the angel self part had these feelings like, I don't want to do this. I got to get in the water. It's going to be, I don't going to get all wet, And there was no hesitation though. Just dove right in after the girl and grabbed her, got her. So I had her in my arm, and interesting, I had her in my left arm, which is I burned my left hand. Anyway, and then she had the trike in the right hand. And she turned to face the path and to swim. Now she's got the girl, she got the trike, and she's swimming, okay, in this water. And the water is possibly very deep, very dark, but suddenly the angel self realizes there's a current in the water. And the current is taking her away from the launch point, away from that part of the shore. And as I turned, I could see that the current was taking me to the opposite shore where we had already been. But the angel self thought, if I fight against the current, I don't know if we're going to make it. But if I go with the current, I'm confident I can get to the shore. So what happens is the angel self delivers the little girl to the shore, and the other person I was walking with, who is a family member in real life, and an extended family member, reached down and we got the girl out of the water. Everything was going to be okay, except for I looked and the trike was just, it was gone. There was only one piece of it left somehow. And so I just had to, I let it go. And it was interesting, as the angel self, or the soul self, the representative energy of my soul, thought, as she's lifting up the little girl, she thought, I hope that the little girl doesn't focus on the blue tricycle. It was so beautiful and so pretty and so perfect. But I just want her to be, to understand that we got through this, difficult situation. I mean, it could have been life or death, right? And got to the other shore, and now I've rescued her. She's on, she's going to be okay, and I want her to enjoy her life. Whatever the new blue tricycle is, I want her to just love that, or whatever she creates, or however she lives. I just want her to love that and be joyful. Isn't that amazing? So that was the dream, and I want to share the messages of my soul and deconstruct the dream a little bit, because there are spiritual truths, right, that are just enduring. And many of those are represented in the dream. Now, immediately after I awoke, and, I started moving around. At first, when I woke, I felt associated with the angel or soul representative of my soul, right? And then there was my soul family walking with me. But as I got into the morning, it was so clear that the little child was me, and that my soul was communicating and explaining to me the answer to the question that I had been asking over 3 or 4 days. Was it my fault? Like, what could I have done something differently? Is there something I could have done? Just all this other stuff. And so here are the messages. Okay. So when the girl just went into the water, right? She didn't know that was going to happen. She's just sort of living life, biking on her tricycle, having a joyous time. From my soul's perspective, I have the freedom to have my experience. Now I'm speaking as, I being the little girl, right? The child on earth, the child of the soul, the child of God. I have the freedom to have my own experience. Our soul, God, gives us free will choice, but looks after us. The figure 8, the soul is eternal. This is the message. The soul is always with me. God is always with us, right? Guiding us, watching out for us, and caring for us. And whether or not we are aware of it. It was in the dream, the little girl had this sense of her soul, had this sense of this divine presence. But sometimes we don't. We don't have that sense, but we're still walking the path with our own soul. And life is eternal. So it's clear this is from my soul's perspective. This little girl and her tricycle, this is an experience of the soul, right, in incarnation. But life goes on and on and on. And from the experience of the soul, right, that was a life or death situation, and the little girl survived in her current form, right? I survived my experience that was that I was mourning over, and but I feel that the person that the being that we are as humans, the soul sees our lives continuously. In other words, it's like we may change bodies if we reincarnate, but we don't really die. The person, the being that we are, the consciousness, is enduring at the soul level, and the soul is aware of us and remembers us. God is aware of us and remembers us. So I'm using God and the soul interchangeably because I kind of feel like God, the soul is the point of light of God that is aware of us, of each one of us individually. Each one of us has this, and we may experience it in different ways, but there are commonalities. Diving into the water, right? When my own soul just dove into the water, there was no hesitation, even if it made my soul uncomfortable. The soul will move heaven and earth for me. God moves heaven and earth for us, presents us with amazing opportunities, gives us guidance and assistance. Special people cross our path. We receive help that is unexplained and maybe we think is unasked for, but a part of our own being has wanted and deeply desired the assistance. Another message, I think I have 9 messages here. I might have a little more than that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. Okay, so number 4, the current. Okay. There are external conditions that my soul has to deal with. So when my soul dove into the water, right, the angel self dove into the water to assist the little girl that was me in this life, the life I live now, there was a current. So there are greater conditions in the environment of creation, right, in the external environment to the day-to-day, the personal experience of daily life, of our lives, that the soul has to deal with, and the soul will choose the best outcomes for me. Isn't that amazing? The highest and best outcomes. So all of us have this opportunity. That's what I'm sharing with you, that these are commonalities that and messages that I feel that we all have the opportunity to live, to engage with, to experience. Okay, so number 5, the angel figures. So my soul is a part of God, eternal, everlasting, well-reasoned, measured, kind, loving, and permanent. It's always there for me. The other angel. This is message number 6. My soul has friends. God's realm is filled with celestial beings that are here to help me through their relationship with my soul. And it's my soul that provides the primary assistance, but they're there in relationship to lend a hand. Number 7. The engagement that I had with my soul through direct questions and with God through direct questions in the days prior to the dream. There's a recognition that the soul enhances our life and that God goes ahead of us, sort of seeing what the terrain is, right? Leading us with and guiding from there. God goes before you. And in the dream, the angels were walking and viewing the terrain before the girl. Number 8. The loss of the tricycle. There was a rescue of what was important. What was important was the girl herself, the child in human form. The trike was an experience of her world, right? Of my world. The trike represents some kind of a material experience or engagement with other people, or what we had, right? What existed prior to the loss. And in the rescue, the soul, the angel self, focused on what was important. What was important was life itself, right? And enduring, the endurance of life itself, and going on, getting back on to the path that my soul walks. So the message is my soul wants the best for me, to enjoy life and to be hopeful and to not stay overly focused on what was lost or who was lost or the experience that was lost or everything that was a part of that. And it's not to not experience the emotions and to go through that process of grief or mourning or healing or whatever it happens to be. But that there's an end to that. There's a coming out of the depths of that, of the waters of that, and getting back onto the path. And in getting back onto the path, my soul clearly, right, the angel self clearly wanted me to have a fresh outlook. There's an understanding that was in the past, but my soul wants me to be joyous, to experience a good life, to experience, love of the self, joy, and all of the things, the wonderful things and the challenges that come with human life. And to start again, to having come out of the depths of whatever the experience is or the trauma, that there's sort of a, a wiping of the slate. When the soul self put the child back on the path, my sense was that the child was actually going to run back to the beach. She wasn't going to go around the figure 8 again, right? She wasn't going to re-walk that path, that she was going to go back to the initiating point, back to the beach, and live again, right? Live life from here fresh, with a fresh outlook and with joy. So the 9th lesson, the jug-handled turn, the depths of the water and the darkness of the water. The message was some conditions just are. They just happen, and we have to deal with them. People leave our lives. We suffer a loss. Situations change. There are traumatic experiences by, whatever their nature may be. And this is a part of life. And there may not be a reason. There might not be a reason. Sometimes like a lightning bolt striking, it just comes out of nowhere, and we suffer an experience that we think that we didn't want that experience. We didn't want that loss of that person. We didn't want whatever it is. And sometimes there's nothing we could have done differently to change the outcome. And I don't know that if that's comforting. And I'm bringing laughter is part of the recovery of joy, right? I don't know if that's comforting, but it just is. We have experiences in life. I don't think that anyone probably goes through life with 100% great experiences. There may be people who have easier lives than others, for sure. But the experiences, as much as they're difficult, they're what help us grow, and what help us grow as a soul in ways that we cannot imagine. And it's very interesting, because if I really think about it, the entire experience that, this was like the one final piece, right? That to help me have an understanding that there is no understanding. Maybe that's the 10th message, right? Sometimes there is no, well, that's that we can that we can have an understanding that there is no understanding, that life occurs. Sometimes sudden things happen. There are traumatic experiences, and we go into the depths, but God is always there with us. And we can recover and live life again, have joy again, have love again, have a good life again, create something new again, honor the experiences of the past, honor the people that we've been in a relationship with or that we've lost. And it's amazing, the experience can be an incredible blessing, because the search for meaning here has led me, and the search for the meaning in my life, even before the experience that I was mourning, it's led me in a path of journey and discovery that has been incredible. And it's 7 days since I burned my hand, and my hand is literally like, there's still a little tiny bit of nerve pain, but otherwise than that, my hand is imperfection. It's restored. It's fully restored to, the divine perfection that exists within the human form. The human form is restored through that divine perfection restoring. And it's been 7 years since this situation happened that I was mourning. And that's a Saturn cycle, right? 7 years is a cycle of deconstructing and building something new. So I constructed an entire approach. Well, I really didn't construct it. I received it as a transmission from my soul years ago. And in the living of the past 7 years and previous to that, right? Because it's been, well, I guess I don't even know if we're now on 11 or 12 years since I received all of this information, and then spent the last 7 years intensely applying it in different ways to various life situations. But now I'm able to share these experiences as teachings that apply to everyone. are beyond just the personal experience that I've had in my life. And I'm happy to do that. And it brings me joy to do that. And it brings me joy to be in this communion with God and the soul. And, there were times where I couldn't feel that at all in my life. And so I want to share that with you and give you the hope that I was completely lost in terms of being able to find that connection. But through a process of intention and then putting various practices into place, that I was guided each step of the way, right? But something would come up and come into view. And I recovered my relationship with God, with my own soul, and then deepened it, and then came into communion where it's like living a prayer, And that doesn't mean that life is perfect. It doesn't mean that I never get in a fight with someone, or that, there aren't difficult exchanges or whatever. But what it does mean is that it's just a joy and a delight. It's a joy and a delight that this is what the purpose of life is, of my life is. It's been to have these experiences, to come back into communion with God, and then to be able to share about that with others. I had no idea that this was the purpose of my life. It took time to mature into that. And some people come to these things, much, much earlier in life. But for me, since I'm such a hardhead and I can get really super focused on something, just like that girl. I'm biking, and I'm moving my, legs, and I'm going this speed, and I can sense there's these angels, and, and then whoops, in the water, right? So, and then recovered. So it's a delight and a joy at the level of the physical body that it's hard to explain. But when you're in prayer and you're communing with God, and you're in that state where suddenly there's an expansion and you feel like you're really being guided, you're really getting messaging from the divine, and I get that doing energy work. In a meditative stance. I'm not really meditating. I'm really communing with energetically. But some people get that meditating. They come to that same place. And so this is available. If you've been lost, you can be found again. And if you've turned away, even consciously, even if it was unconsciously, from God and your own soul, God and your own soul are always there with you and waiting for you. And all that they require is your engagement, your desire, your intention, and your reaching out. And it could be just within the heart. It could be verbally crying out. It could be in prayer. It could be through intentions during the day, and then the way you act, right? Because when I burned my hand, it was so fascinating what happened. I did the medical procedures that I knew to do, and then I was praying immediately, as I was doing those, and calling on, the light, the Christ light, to be present within my hand and so on. But it was fascinating because my mind was, would come up with, okay, I've got to do this, then I've got to do that, and I've got to do this, I've got to take this or do that. And then I was alone when it happened. And I wanted to reach out to someone. And my mind was coming up with these, reach out to this person, reach out to that person, because I had my phone there, or energetically even. And it was so fascinating because I was kind of in a desperation, right? Because I could have been, because my hand hurt so much. And a couple of ideas came to me, and as I mused on them, right, I'm in pain, but yet in the moments that I can muse on this, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. And I prayed, I've got this idea. Is that what's in my highest good? Is this from my soul giving me this? Or is it just generated from the mind, or it's an offer from outside myself somehow? And with a couple of the ideas I had, I got no. But you see, the human part of me was desperate to get away from the pain, to find any solution I hadn't thought of. But sometimes you're just going to go through some pain if you burn yourself. But what I did was I made a decision in that moment. And I said, soul, my God, I communed in the way that I do, and I essentially communicated. Then I won't ask for help from that person. I won't contact that person. I won't ask for help like I was thinking of doing. I put my trust in you. I put my trust in you, in my soul, the light of Christ, my God, the ways that I personally think of these things and experience them. And I made a commitment right there. I said, the two things that occurred to me, no and no, I won't do it. I will stay with your guidance. And I thought, wow, I think that this is something big that just happened, where despite the pain in human form, that I still chose, I'm going with guidance. I'm going to check everything that I think of. Is this in alignment with the guidance at the soul level, at the level of my own soul, source connect, from my source, right? From the light of the Creator that I am, the spark of the living God. I want guidance from that level. And so that's what I did. I went with how I was guided. And you know what? The experience has been amazing. And I share with you that I hope that your experience has been amazing, and that this story blesses you somehow in some way. Thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for listening.